Okay, we will reconvene the second segment for today. And our first speaker will be from BW Offshore. And we'll be talking about energy transition. So we have Jerome Garrido who is the Floating Wind Business Unit Manager from BW Offshore, to share with us his thought on how the FPSO industry can contribute to climate actions in the energy transition. Jerome joined BW Offshore in 2017. He has 22 years of international experience in the oil and gas industry, most of it as a project manager responsible for the delivery of mainly floating production units. Jerome is here with us today, so please join me in welcoming him on stage to share his thoughts on the topic. Jerome, please.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes? Okay. Yeah, good morning, everybody. So my presentation is going to be mainly about floating wind power to platform or FPSO. Oh. Yeah, you need to help me. Okay, thank you. Okay, so first of all, who we are. Second of all, BW Ideol Technology. I'll explain a bit more about that. Why offshore wind to power, high-level cost analysis, and then platform or FPSO design consideration and forward planning. So who we are, first, you can find that, of course, on the BW Group website, but I'm going to explain a little bit. So you can see here, BW Offshore, BW Ideol. Those two companies, so I work for BW Offshore, belongs to the BW Group, which is a world-leading maritime group in tanker gas and the offshore segment, and operates a fleet of large fleet of vessels. As you can see, BW LPG, BW Energy, Hafnia, and recently BW Offshore acquired BW Ideol, and I'll explain a bit more on the next slide. So BW Group owns 49.9% of BW Offshore. So who are we, BW Offshore? Okay, I still need to introduce a bit ourselves. So we own a fleet of 14 FPSOs and delivered around 40 projects since 1983, $7 billion backlog, commercial uptime in 2020, 97%, around 2,000 employees. And we are specialized as well in the redeployment and life extension of FPSOs. We've done that in 2017 on the BW Adolo FPSO for Gabon. So where are we working? The same as our colleagues and competitors worldwide, between Brazil, the Gulf of Mexico, North Sea, West Africa, and in this part of the world. This is our global presence, and where is sitting basically our experience. So earlier this year, BW Offshore acquired BW Ideol. Today we own 53.2% of BW Ideol. Who is BW Ideol? So this is a pure play of floating offshore wind champion. So basically this company had nothing to do with oil and gas, and a purely renewable technology. They have strong pipeline of projects, mainly in wind farm, in renewable activities. And then we've been the early movers with basically taking the acquisition of BW Ideol. So BW Offshore, we have an extensive track record of complex projects. Today we are executing the Barossa FPSO projects, and lately we had delivered an FPSO which is in operation, FPSO Catcher in the North Sea. So what is BW Ideol technology? So this is a damping pool barge. So everyone knows what is a barge as you see in this room. The construction can be made of steel, which we are very familiar with in the FPSO industry, or concrete. This is a very compact hull design, and operating in a relatively shallow draft. There's no need for disconnection for the hull maintenance and towback. This is suitable to any wind turbine generator manufacturer. So there are three main leaders, which are GE, Vestas, and Siemens. And of course, there is a series of others which are ramping up. The advantage of this design is that the wind turbine can be assembled and commissioned alongside the quay. We know as FPSO contractor how important it is to complete as much work as you can when you're alongside the quay, whether it's here in Southeast Asia or anywhere, and to reduce all the potential work you may have to do offshore. Mooring lines in 3 directions, so typically 6 mooring lines, redundant for a 1-year return period, and towing to the installation site using a lower cost installation vessel. So BW Ideol is the only one with 2 floaters operating in the water. So one is operating in Japan. This is a 3.2 megawatt wind turbine generator. It's operating since 2018. And the other one is operating in a place I know a little bit better, in front of Le Croisic in France. Same 2 megawatt wind turbine generator operating since 2018. This one in concrete has been built in concrete, and this one is steel construction, so traditional to what we know. So what's the benefit of the dumping pool barge design? So basically, it can accommodate 2 megawatt to 20 megawatt wind turbine. As you can see, I'm not sure you can see, but basically this is a scalable foundation, scalable design. So basically, if you're increasing by up to 650% the power of the wind turbine generator, the floater size, okay, this is obviously not accurate numbers, but would increase only by 50%. So the hull is very compact, and as I mentioned before, this wind turbine, this floater can accommodate any wind turbine generator brands. So there is projects which are ongoing in the Mediterranean side, the EolMed projects, where BW is going to provide at least design support and for the installation of 10 megawatt floating wind turbine generator. So one of the questions we all ask ourselves is, how does it behave in harsh condition? So this has been designed for severe weather and provide excellent seakeeping performance. I've seen a high number of typhoons, including category 5 on the Ibiki floater, and continue operating with the 1-year return period design condition, which is subject to the wind turbine generator cutoff wind speed. I'll explain a bit later about the wind speed cutoff. Floating demonstrator experienced, the float gain is the demonstrator operating in France. Yeah, so significant, so 11 meters waves in February last year. And the design of the dumping pool can be adjusted to suit different metocean condition and wind turbine generator size. And typically the design life of the floater is aligned with the design life of the wind turbine generator, which is 25 years. For the steel, for the concrete, it can be up to 100 years, but this is not something that would be the technology probably would have overtaken for the wind turbine generator would have overtaken and would be obsolete after 25 years. So why offshore wind to power? So this is coming back to the introductions which have been made by previously. We want, of course, everyone's looking for reducing greenhouse gas emission, but there is some benefits. and it was mentioned before, reduce the potential CO2 emission taxes. This is not something which is going to happen. This is happening already. Low ESG low cost ESG option compared to alternative. Improve the ESG credential for and corporate image for not only the contractor but as well the client. Financial benefits, obviously. Reduce fuel gas consumption, and if importation is applicable in case of gas export, basically additional revenue for the client. Reduce capex on the platform or the FPSO by changing from gas turbine to electric drive, and potentially reduce capex on platform or FPSO by eliminating one gas turbine. So you can have 3 or 4 gas turbine generator depending on the size of your FPSO. You can envisage, potentially removing one. So you have a capex saving here, and as well an OPEX benefit. And then something which was mentioned, obviously, is you are attracting green project financing, which is, and it's not, again, this is not a dream, that's a reality, which is cheaper than traditional oil and gas financing. And then can provide local content benefit for projects. So in this industry, the same way as, and we are all very familiar with in Brazil or West Africa, local content is playing a key role. Same for this offshore wind and floating wind renewable industry. Local content is key. So with the design of the dumping pool, in particular when it's built in concrete, it can be built locally. You can basically develop your construction yard and build it from scratch. If it's applied for large wind farm, here we are focusing more on power to platform, power to FPSO, floating power to FPSO. High-level cost analysis. So first of all, when we look at projects, if we look at FPSO which are already in operations, if you want to make modifications on an FPSO or on a platform, typically all you have what we call the sunk capex cost and retrofit cost on the existing asset. You're not going to enlarge your electrical room when your FPSO is in operation without impacting the production. So therefore, at least our view today is the earlier you decide to apply that on a greenfield project, the better. Spread mode or two-red mode FPSO. Yeah, on a spread mode FPSO, it's an additional umbilical providing power from the floating wind turbines to your FPSO. If you have a turret, most likely you will need an additional swivel, HV swivel. So as we can see, when your FPSO is in operation, that's a very big constraint. And it provides a highly competitive capex and opex figure depending on the quantity. The projects economic are dependent on the equipment's capex saving on greenfield FPSO and the associated opex saving over a period of 25 years. And most of the project design life is 20, 25 years or even beyond that. You have your recurrent OPEX costs, which are not insignificant. So this is a benefit. And the OPEX cost of a floating wind turbine versus a gas turbine are totally different. As I mentioned earlier, the imported fuel gas costs, if you have a gas export, you can obviously export your gas. Your client can export the gas and sell it, rather than burning it as fuel gas. CO2 emission taxes. So depending on the countries, those taxes are increasing or are planned to increase. And then, availability of low-cost green financing and availability of government incentive and subsidies. At least my perception is the COVID-19 has probably triggered the energy transition last year. Nowadays, most of our traditional oil and gas clients are very much looking into CO2 reduction, and all the governments in the various countries as well. So therefore, there is potential tax benefits or incentives that are going to appear. So we've just here, it's a high-level single-line diagram. You see in blue the floating wind turbine, and you see in green what would be the modification on the FPSO. We took the example of today of a wind turbine generator of 12 megawatt, but okay, in 3 years it can be 15, in 10 years it can be 20 megawatt. The modifications that are required, I'll explain that a bit more in the next slides. So, what are the design considerations for an FPSO? Yeah, J-tube, in case of Torretmont, J-tube on the platform, additional slot on FPSO riser balcony, or an HV swivel, additional HV swivel for power cable from a wind turbine generator. The topside layout to include gas insulated switchgear and a transformer for the step down from the wind turbine generator to the FPSO. The monitoring and control system to be incorporated in the FPSO or in the platform or on the FPSO central equipment room. HMI station on the central control room as well. The power management system, which is key, and I'll explain a bit on the next slide. ICSS, fire and gas designed to include the wind turbine generator operation and interfaces. If we delete one of the gas turbine, basically we do not install a gas turbine with a waste heat recovery unit. We may need to add electrical heating to supplement process heating requirements. RAM analysis would need, of course, to assess the wind persistency and the impact of the low or no wind conditions. And battery storage system would be required to be included on the platform or on the FPSO E-house. I'll explain a bit on the next slide. So the integration of the hybrid energy storage system. So batteries is something which is starting to appear more and more on FPSO. So this is a typical diagram. So you can see that the power output from a wind turbine generator typically goes from 12 to 25 meters per second of wind. So you have the power on the power capacity up to 100% from 12. This is a typical. Okay, some wind turbine may have different figures, but this is just an example. So during the range from 3 to 12 meters per second, the power output will vary of the wind turbine generator as the wind speed will fluctuate. The HES system is a battery storage system which is required for the peak shaving to smooth out the power supply and allow the gas turbine generator to operate more smoothly. So basically, if we want to avoid a sudden loss of power, the power management system designed to allow for initiation of the start of the gas turbine generator as soon as the wind speed reaches 25 meters per second. So you want a slow speed of your wind turbine generator, of your gas turbine generator, sorry, and you're using the battery system to allow for that. It may be as well beneficial for the platform, for the FPSO in operation to consider a larger HES system than required only for the wind turbine generator, peak shaving, to basically add some spinning reserve. In case of shutdown, you don't want to stop necessarily at the same time, or your client don't want to stop necessarily the ESPs at the same time, and you can add. But the battery system would be significantly bigger to be installed on the FPSO. So forward planning. So if we look ahead, how you want to organize that on a project? at least my experience is the earlier you start, the better you can anticipate issues. So early assessment of the wind resources is required to establish the viability of the wind power to platform. So basically, not all the countries are suitable to receive FPSO with the floating wind turbines. You need to do an assessment, and I would say all this knowledge is existing in the renewable industry and can be directly transposed to the oil and gas industry. If the importation of the wind power is viable, then early stage, when you're doing your pre-feed or your feed, you need to incorporate the fact that you're going to add one gas turbine less. So basically, it's going to modify your topside layout design. If you want to add a wind turbine generator on a project, it would require additional environmental studies. What we are seeing in BW Offshore is typically you have much more studies like bird studies, ornithology studies, which are not directly applicable or they are not directly executed on FPSO projects. You have additional regulatory approvals, but okay, our industry is used to that. And it all have to start at the same time. So which means if you want a feed to be, and if you want in a feed to be providing the best solution to your client, you need to start this at the same time as you're doing your feed for your FPSO. Meteocean studies include recording of site-specific wind data to enable the accurate estimate of the wind yield. The frequency is higher than normal for the floating wind turbines. And early geophysical, geotechnical studies to include anchoring considerations. So if you assume that you need to add 3 or 4 floating wind turbines, each of them have at least 6 mooring lines. So you have additional mooring points that you have to consider. So you need to make all your geophysical, geotechnical data to plan for your mooring. And the wind resource assessment and capacity factor can be obtained, and then you can define, okay, which type of floating wind turbines you need, what's the capacity of the wind turbine generator you need, and the viability which is required to build up your economics, adding the capex of the FPSO to the capex of your wind turbine, plus all the benefits from that I mentioned before. Yeah, this is it.
Okay, thanks, Jerome. Again, we have one long list of questions for you, but because of time constraints, we'll probably take, let me see, 2 to 3 of the most popular ones.
Yeah.
Okay, so first one, we would like to understand any ongoing thoughts to integrate floating wind power source with FPSO. What are the anticipated challenges in this integration?
As I mentioned at the back end of the presentation, it's a bit challenging once you just submitted your proposal for your FPSO to come at the last minute and say, oh, by the way, I want 3 floating wind turbines. Can you? Because as we mentioned, the benefits, there is capex benefits on the FPSO itself, which mean if you could remove 1 gas turbine generator, but to do that, you need to have done all your wind assessment, to have done probably some start of geographical, geophysical data to know where you're going to install your floating wind turbines, along all your subsea spaghetti, which is being installed nearby your FPSO. So then, which means the challenges is to start late, and no, I don't see. I'm a positive person. I see only benefits. But yeah.
Okay, and next question, more on numbers.
Yeah.
What will be the savings in capex when we have a wind turbine generator plus a battery system compared to gas turbine?
Well, this is on a case-by-case basis, basically. It depends on how many gas turbines you have. If you go and what's the duration you have on your project, it has to be analyzed. But there is a significant benefit, as I mentioned, if you have gas export. The amount of gas you're burning is very significant. So it's an additional extra revenue to your client. And so there is some, it's really on a case-by-case basis. So a specific study needs to be done.
I think we take one last question, something more specific to your product.
Yeah.
How is the capex cost per megawatt of damping pool barge wind turbine compared to conventional power generation source?
Okay, so I haven't specifically added the capex cost per megawatt because it depends on so first of all, the damping pool barge, typically what we see is you have a break-even as soon as you start building between 5 and 10 to go from steel to concrete. And again, if you install if you can build your floater in this part of the world, or at least in Asia, and you have to install it in Asia, that's, I would say, you don't have to transport it back to Europe. So there is typically, I would say between 4 and 6 cost per megawatt. That's 4 and 6 million euros, sorry, per megawatt. But again, it depends. There's a lot of factors and parameters you have to consider. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah.